One of the art supplies I hope you have at home are some markers. Now the markers that we want to use are these markers that there's lots of different brands. Crayola is one of them. But we want markers that are usually, you might find Rose Art markers. Crayola is another brand. There's some other brands you can find at the dollar store. Most of the ones you'll be able to buy that come in these tin packs, they all kind of look the same. They're usually water-based, and that means if they get wet, they can run everywhere. Sharpies are not water-based, they're permanent markers, so you can't use anything for the lesson I'm doing today with permanent markers, but these are the ones you want. They don't have to say washable on them. These will work just fine. So usually if they're kind of what we think of as a kid's marker, this is what you need. So I'm going to try a couple of these spring colored ones. Your markers can do a couple different things. This is up. It makes a really skinny line if it's up on its tippy toes, as I like to call it. But if you lean it sideways and push, it can make a really wide line. So if it's hard for you to color, you don't really like coloring, you might try leaning your marker, let it lay down kind of in your hand and get the broad part of that marker because it will help you. So I'm going to go ahead and just get a couple bunnies kind of put in. You have two options for the bunnies, by the way. You can just do an outline of the bunny if you like. I'm even going to go ahead and put in this line right here. You don't have to. So you can leave him as an outline for the painting, or you can color him in all the way. That choice is up to you. I'm going to do each bunny a different way, and then I will get back to you and show you how to make your marker turn into a painting. So here we go. Now, here's the part where you may have some supplies you don't have. I have some cheap paintbrushes, so if you have a cheap paint set, this will be perfect. You just need a glass of water, nothing fancy there. I have some paintbrushes at home because I'm an art teacher, so that's handy for me. But if you don't have this at home, ask your family if they have Q-tips, because those little things that sometimes you use to clean your ears out, they would work perfect for this job. So anything that can get wet that you can use that has kind of a soft tip at the end would work just fine. I'm going to show you this middle one. As soon as this marker gets wet, because it's water soluble, that means it's diluted, water can like make it melt basically. All you need to do is get that marker wet, and you can rub. So I'm going to bring this up here. All you need to do is get the marker wet, and you can use that, and the marker will start to actually kind of flow and turn into kind of a paint solution. Oops, a little hair on there. And so if you kind of like your drawing to be outlined, I'm going to show you this drawing I did earlier. This one was all white in the middle. It was actually red, and by the time the red got wet, it filled in the whole flower pink. So you can see here that my pink peep here, he is pretty light colored, so if that's the look you're going for, that's fine. You can even take your marker while it's wet and even do even more drawing on the top of it, and the marker will kind of bleed. Artists like to call it that when the marker kind of, well, when the paint basically can run into other wet paper. So there's an idea if you wanted to add a little bit of detail to your peep bunny, is you could go right on top of the wet paper and add that. Another thing that I did to my purple bunny here is I'm just going to put water. So I didn't want him to kind of look outliney like this. I just want him to be solid. So I'm just going to use my my water and basically let it turn into paint and smooth out all the areas where my marker, maybe you could see my lines. And I'm going to let that ink spread and flow together to create that kind of look, and I'm going to let that dry. So it just kind of smooths in any of your spots that maybe were white. You can even see where I'm getting outside of my lines a little bit because I'm going fast, that I've got kind of a purple paint, which is fine. But the more that you rub it, and be careful not to rub it too much because it'll make your paper fall apart. So I can already tell if I zoom in. Let me see if I can see it here. If I zoom in, I can see these little crumbs. That's actually the paper falling apart. So when you see that, you want to stop rubbing that part because your paper is talking to you and saying, stop what you're doing. All right, this last one, I used 2 different colors. So kind of like this idea where I went back and drew the edge to kind of make a shadow. I'm actually just using a different color here. So I'm kind of combining these 2 bunnies to make this one. So I'm going to, on this last bunny, because I've combined them together, I've just gone ahead and rubbed these 2 colors. So I did the main section first, and then I just rubbed on that extra color and even pulled it towards the middle of that bunny to get that to kind of look like a shadowed edge and just give it a different look. So you might want to try all 3 of those things and see if any of them, you know, give you different ideas. You could do fish, you could do flowers. You could kind of use this in a lot of different ways. So I would just encourage you to play with what you have at home and see what you come up with. One last thing that I'm going to show you is how to add some details. You need to let these dry first. And if they're dry, you can see maybe you have a little bit of paper crumbs. Usually I can just kind of rub those or scratch at them with my finger a little bit, and they'll just kind of come off. But this is where I want to use my permanent markers, or if they're completely dry, you can go ahead and use the ones that came in your marker pack here, as long as the paper is totally dry. So this is where I'm going to go back to my drawing where I can still see my pencil a little bit. I'm going to add that Peeps little eyes with my permanent marker here, because a permanent marker is not water soluble. It cannot be, it doesn't go away. I could paint right over the top of this and this marker would not be going anywhere. So this is where you could add some details to your artwork and go right over the top of it. Add some decorations. On this one that I did here, you could go back on the inside and really start to kind of define some of the parts of your drawing that you had before. So if you were drawing, you know, fish, you could go back in. You could even put some patterns within your design and just kind of, you know, just use your imagination, because you never know what you're going to figure out in terms of an idea just by kind of exploring while you have time to just kind of play and let your imagination run wild. This is an inexpensive art supply that's probably pretty easy for someone to get their hands on, even if it does mean just going to the dollar store when your family's trying to find some, you know, hard to find toilet paper. And you can just start, you know, making some art with things you have at home. I hope you have a happy painting day. I would encourage you to even do this outside. It's really good to get some fresh air and some sunshine. So with that, I will say see you later.